Welcome back to Canadian Justice, where we're discussing author and Professor Julie Macfarlane's book, Going Public, which deals with sexual abuse. I advise viewers to use their discretion in this episode, which may deal with topics that are distressing for some people who live with trauma. Professor Macfarlane, one of the other things that stood out to me in your book was there were a number of incidences where you tried to come forward to friends or even colleagues to talk about your experience with abuse, to try and open up in a small way. And many of these conversations did not seem to go well. It seemed like a lot of people were uncomfortable hearing about what had happened to you or talking about it. People seemed to freeze up or brush it off completely.
Change the subject.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask your advice. If someone comes to one of our viewers to disclose an experience of sexual abuse, what is a supportive way that they can react?
Well, first of all, listen to them and appreciate how much time and agony has gone into the decision to talk to you. In fact, I would say that if someone's coming to disclose something like this to you, you should actually feel that you are being given an honor as well as a responsibility, because you're seen as someone that they can speak to. But you have to be aware of how difficult it is to have that conversation, and it might take place in snatches. So, for example, the people that I gradually began to talk to about this only heard little pieces to begin with. And at the same time, Christine, somebody opening up like this doesn't want to get interrogated. So I think that it's important to be mindful of, please come back and talk more to me about this. I'm not going to press you for more information now, but I'm going to go on this journey with you and listen to what you're telling me.
Wonderful advice. Now, one of the things in your book you write about is your successful civil lawsuit against the Anglican Church for abuse you had experienced as a teen from a minister in that church. Now, can you tell me how you came to the decision to sue the church, and what can you tell me about the lawsuit?
Well, it was a very difficult decision for me. This was really interesting because I have my whole professional life studied legal practice, studied litigation, and concluded that it's really not a very good thing for most of us. And it's not a particularly good way of solving problems. So it was incredibly counterintuitive for me to do this. But my lawyer, David Greenwood, who is a remarkable advocate for victims of clerical abuse, he persuaded me that because of my position as a law professor, my relatively public profile, that this would be something that would really help other victims to come forward because it would be reported. I was very clear right from the very beginning that, I didn't want any kind of, I wasn't signing an NDA. There was going to be no publication ban. And so he persuaded me basically that this would be empowering for other people. And so that was frankly, Christine, why I did it. I didn't particularly relish it. And of course, what happened was exactly what I knew from my years and years of study would happen, which is the church just stonewalled me and didn't want to have anything to do with me. So in fact, what I did in the end, because it was so frustrating finding all these things, these bad things that I knew would happen, started to happen. So, for example, I received the statement of defense, which said that as a vulnerable teenager, I apparently had consented to my minister sexually abusing me, which was incredibly distressing and unfortunately very typical in defense statements. But it made me so mad that I wrote a column for the Church Times, which is the world newspaper of the Anglican Church, calling out the church on the fact that they'd just done this to me and saying, if I want to talk about this, I want to settle this case, we don't need to go to court. And surprise, surprise, by the following Monday, the church was in touch and we were going to negotiation.
So amazing what a little bit of media attention will do. I want to talk...
And a little bit of anger.
Yeah, seriously. One of the things that is really important to understand is in the context of a pastoral relationship, the idea of consent is not a straightforward one. Now, in your story, you were very young and inexperienced teenager and you'd gone to your minister for spiritual counsel, I think in that context, I think maybe it's easier for viewers to understand why that was not consensual. But I think it's important to understand, even among experienced adults, there can be a fiduciary relationship between a minister or priest and a congregant. We've got to go to commercial break, but when we come back, I want to talk about that fiduciary concept and the notion of consent.